Ranger hit the door before he knew the car had stopped, and the storm swallowed the road like a mouth. Trent said, "You were never my problem," and his hand shoved hard, sour smoke clinging to his sleeve. The night roared as tires hissed past, and glassy rain hammered the asphalt. Ranger slid, claws scraping, and pain sparked along his ribs. He tasted metal and fear, and the memory of a porch light. Ranger said, "Maya, I'm here," though the wind stole the sound. The collar tag slapped his neck, a tiny bell of hope in the thunder. Headlights flared and leaned like white wolves, and he crouched low. Trent said, "Stay gone," and the taillights narrowed into mean red eyes. Ranger staggered to the median and shook off water that felt like needles. He smelled oil, wet grass, and the faint ghost of lavender. Ranger said, "Find the scent, find the door, find Maya." Lightning cracked, and the highway turned to silver. His scar burned like a warning, but he breathed and listened for a way out. The storm answered with a dare. The storm chewed at every edge of the night, while Ranger counted breaths and found his feet. Water tugged at his paws like small hands, begging him to lie down. Ranger said, "Move now or be swept away," and he pushed into the wind. A horn barked, and a truck's echo rolled under the overpass like a growl. The smell of lavender wrote a memory, and the memory wore a yellow porch light. Ranger said, "Maya, I remember the door and the laugh and the bowl," and the thought warmed his ribs. He limped to the guardrail gap and peered at the black ribbon of road. A plastic bag danced madly on the fence and snapped at him. Ranger said, "Not a snake, not a trap, just wind," and he passed it. The cold reached nails he did not know he had, and he kept going. Somewhere behind him the taillights had become stars he did not trust. A siren wailed in a far street, thin as a thread. Ranger said, "Follow the grass, find the earth, keep the tag close," and he pressed north, nose low. The ditch funneled runoff into a round culvert that hummed like a throat. Ranger said, "Small spaces hold safety," and he stepped into the tunnel's damp breath. Water kissed his ankles, then argued at his knees. He braced and slid along the slick lip, following the faint sweetness that felt like home. A fresh gust drove needles of rain across the opening behind him. Ranger said, "Hold to the wall, count 6 steps, check the air," and he paused to listen. The storm spoke in drum beats, but under it a softer rhythm tapped like footsteps on wood. He nosed the tag, and the metal clicked like a tiny bell. Ranger said, "You are my map," and he moved deeper until darkness pressed his whiskers. A distant car hissed and became a sigh. Cold gnawed at his shoulder where the roll had bruised him. Ranger said, "Pain is a fence, not a door," and he kept going toward the dim oval of the far end. The culvert spat Ranger into a tangle of weeds and a rattling chain-link fence. A broken billboard groaned above, its face torn like paper. Ranger said, "Find the seam," and he traced the wire until a bent diamond opened near the post. Wind shoved rain through it in angry threads. He pressed a shoulder and felt the bruise shout. Ranger said, "Go anyway," and squeezed, fur snagging, paws slipping on mud. Beyond the fence, a service road cut a dark line past a shuttered gas station. A banner slapped its poles like a flag in a bad dream. Ranger said, "Road means people. People mean water and doors," and he stumbled onto gravel. The storm's breath grew colder and heavier. He tasted rust, rubber, and corn syrup. Ranger said, "No more cars with him inside," and looked for a shadow to hide under as the thunder chased him forward. The overpass loomed like a rib cage and offered a thin mercy from the rain. Ranger said, "Breathe here," and tucked into a hollow where concrete met dirt. A delivery truck rolled to a stop near the station, and white light brushed the wet ground. A man stepped out with a hood pulled tight. Noah said, "Easy, buddy," and he crouched, palms open to the air. Ranger tasted the copper of old fear and edged back. The wind flapped Noah's jacket, but his hands did not close. Noah said, "You look hurt," and he set a water bottle down, then stepped away. Ranger watched the bottle like it might bite, then smelled the clean plastic and the promise inside. He lapped once and felt his throat loosen. Noah said, "I'll call for help," and he moved toward the cab. Ranger said, "Not yet," and slid deeper into the shadows, listening for wheels and the name that lived on his tag. Morning broke with a gray sky still heavy from the storm, and Ranger limped across the cracked gravel lot, his ribs sore and coat clumped with dried rain. The gas station's neon flickered like a tired eye refusing to shut. Ranger said, "The night left me, but not the memory," and he nosed the water bottle Noah had left. A faint sweetness lingered, not fear, not cruelty. The wind smelled of diesel, burnt coffee, and fresh bread carried from somewhere close. He lifted his head and caught a stronger thread, lavender and warmth braided into the air. Ranger said, "Maya is near." I know this truth, though his voice trembled inside. A crow barked from the power line above, and its wings cut the clouds like knives. Noah leaned against his truck, dialing a phone with weary hands. Noah said, "Someone lost this one, someone who loved him once," his breath misting in the cold. Ranger shifted his weight, eyes wide, hope clawing against doubt. He took a step forward, tail low but steady. The call failed twice, static snapping like small sparks, and Noah cursed under his breath. Ranger crouched, ears flicking at the harsh sound, yet the open palms earlier whispered trust. Noah said, "Hey, buddy, hungry?" and pulled a wrapped sandwich from the cab. The smell of egg and cheese surged through the cold air, tugging at Ranger's belly. Ranger said, "It is not a trap if he does not close his fists," and he crept forward, paws slow, tail trailing mud streaks. A breeze shifted, pulling lavender over diesel once more, and it painted hope across Ranger's ribs. Noah tore a piece and tossed it low, not toward but near, letting Ranger choose. Ranger said, "Kindness has no rope," and he ate, trembling but steady. Noah knelt, lowering his height, making himself smaller than the weight of Ranger's fear. The neon buzzed louder, and for a breath, the world shrank to food, trust and distance, closing by inches. The sandwich gone, Ranger licked the crumbs from the grit, and his chest loosened for the first time since the push from the car. Noah said, "You're tougher than you look," his voice a low hum meant for ears, not phones. Ranger's eyes traced the scarred leather jacket draped over Noah's seat, so unlike transpolished cruelty. Ranger said, "This man is not him," and he inched closer, paws pressing light marks into wet gravel. The crow shifted above and rattled its wings, warning of dangers yet to come. Noah's hand hung loose by his knee, fingers open, palm damp from mist. He did not reach, only waited. Ranger tilted his head, collar tag clinking, and the memory of Maya's laugh pressed like sunlight through clouds. The storm lingered at the horizon, but in this small corner, the air warmed. Ranger said, "Trust grows from patience," and his nose brushed Noah's fingertips before he stepped back, trembling but alive. The highway groaned awake with traffic, and engines growled as if remembering the storm's cruelty. Ranger flinched at each horn blast, body stiff, ears tucked. Noah said, "It's okay, buddy, they're just cars." But Ranger's chest knew wheels carried both pain and loss. His eyes searched the road where taillights had vanished hours before, red wounds carved into his memory. Noah stood slowly, brushing gravel from his hands, and scanned the lot. He said, "We'll find who you belong to," determination steady in his tone. Ranger said, "I already belong, but the world tore me away," and his tail brushed the mud lightly. A breeze lifted Noah's hood, framing his weary face in pale light. Ranger stepped closer again, scar catching the weak sun, and felt less like a ghost in the rain. Hope began to feel like something with weight, not just a shadow. A rusty pickup rumbled into the lot, its muffler coughing like a sick beast, and Ranger stiffened, growl low. A man climbed out, thick jacket patched, and eyes sharp with suspicion. He said, "Stray bothering you?" Noah shook his head, hand raised to still Ranger. Noah said, "He's no bother, just lost," his voice calm but firm. The stranger spat, muttered, and moved inside the store, the door's bell jangling like mock laughter. Ranger pressed against the truck's tire, instinct urging retreat. Noah crouched again and whispered, "Not everyone means harm, but some never learn." Ranger said, "You are not him," and eased closer. The world tilted between cruelty and kindness, and in Noah's steady eyes, Ranger saw the faint outline of trust, drawn sharper. The storm's memory receded, leaving a fragile calm. Ranger said, "Hold to this," and the wind eased into silence. The service road curved into silence, but Ranger's pause quickened as hunger pulled harder. His ribs flared with each breath, scar prickling like a warning. Noah followed close, his eyes flicking at passing headlights that sliced shadows. Noah said, "We'll find help soon," though his tone carried doubt. Ranger pressed nose to gravel, tracing lavender over diesel fumes. A rusted gate barred the path, chain loose, but sharp edges waiting. Ranger said, "Pain is a test," and he nosed through, fur scraping. A whistle drifted from deeper shadows, sharp and cold. Noah stiffened, his hand brushing his jacket pocket as if memory burned there. Ranger's hackles rose, tail low. The world tilted between trust and threat, and the night breathed heavier, promising worse. The whistle cut short, replaced by laughter that scraped like metal. Two figures stepped from behind a derelict billboard, boots crunching gravel. One man said, "Look what wandered in," his eyes narrowing at Ranger. The other smirked, lighter flaring bright, smoke curling despite the damp air. Noah shifted forward, voice firm, "He's not yours." Ranger said, "Their eyes hold no kindness," and he bristled, teeth bare, but body low. The storm's remnants dripped from the broken sign above, tapping like a clock, counting seconds. The men circled, shadows stretching in headlights from a passing truck. Ranger held still, growl vibrating through the ground, ready if needed. The night turned sharper, every breath colder, danger pressing from all sides. The man with the lighter flicked ash toward Ranger, embers dying on wet stone. He sneered, "Strays don't last long out here." Noah stepped in front, shoulders squared. "Noah," said, "leave him alone," his tone steady, though his jaw clenched. Ranger pressed close to Noah's leg, eyes darting between faces. A memory flickered, Trent's hand shoving him, taillights shrinking, betrayal alive in his chest. Ranger said, "Cruelty wears many coats, but it smells the same." The second man spat, boots grinding gravel, and muttered, "Showed Vev Kem tide." A horn blared from the highway, cutting tension but not enough. Ranger's growl deepened, the sound like thunder brewing again, ready to answer violence with defiance. Noah lifted his voice, sharp but calm. "Noah," said, "back off before I call this in." The men froze, laughter fading, suspicion clouding their eyes. "Ranger," said, "the pack shifts when one stands tall," and he steadied himself, no longer shrinking. A gust swept loose papers across the lot, rattling against the billboard's broken frame. One man muttered, "He ain't worth it," and they turned, boots stomping as smoke faded into the mist. Silence settled, broken only by Ranger's panting. Noah crouched, voice low now, "You're safe, buddy." Ranger pressed his nose to Noah's sleeve, catching warmth where fear had just been. For a moment, the weight lifted, though the road ahead promised darker trials still. The mist thickened as Noah led Ranger back to the service road, headlights tracing the horizon. Ranger's paws ached, but his tail carried a flicker of lift, the memory of kindness pressing against the night. Noah said, "We'll keep moving," though weariness lined his face. Ranger said, "Every step away from cruelty is closer to home," and he leaned into the wind. The storm was gone, but its shadow lingered in the puddles and broken glass. Behind them the men's laughter still haunted the silence, faint echoes of threat not yet buried. Ranger's tag chimed against his chest, small, bright, alive. He lifted his head, catching lavender stronger now, hope braiding itself into the damp air. His stride quickened, pain forgotten, as the promise of reunion tugged him forward. The service road bled into the edge of town, lights flickering from shuttered shops and boarded windows. Ranger slowed, head lifted, nose twitching at a memory sharpened by lavender drifting stronger than before. Noah rubbed his arms against the cold, eyes narrowing at the silence that felt too heavy. Noah said, "This place has seen better days," voice carrying unease. Ranger pressed forward, tail low, scar tugging as he strained to keep the thread of scent. A shadow lingered near a street lamp, tall, still, familiar. The shape of Trent's frame haunted the glow, his cigarette ember pulsing like a red eye. Ranger froze, muscles coiled, heart hammering. The air thickened with betrayal's weight, every instinct urging retreat. Trent's laugh drifted sharp, mocking. Ranger said, "The ghost returns, but I still breathe." Noah stepped closer, jaw clenched, knowing the truth had arrived. Trent stepped into full light, his face weathered but twisted with disdain, smoke trailing from his lips. Trent said, "Didn't expect to see you crawling back, mutt." Ranger's scar burned, a reminder of asphalt and red taillights. Noah placed himself in front, voice hard, "You left him to die." Trent smirked, shrugging like cruelty was nothing. Ranger said, "He once held the leash, but chains rot." The scent of lavender tugged harder, painting hope against Trent's bitter smoke. A gust rattled loose shutters, the sound like bones breaking. Trent flicked his cigarette into the gutter, sparks hissing out, and muttered, "Dogs don't deserve loyalty." Ranger bristled, low growls spilling into the night, and Noah steadied his stance, ready for confrontation. The air pulsed with tension as Trent stepped closer, boots crunching on grit, voice sharp. Trent said he was dead weight, nothing more. Ranger's growl deepened, teeth flashing under broken light. Noah's fists clenched, his words clipped. "He's worth more than you ever knew." The memory of a porch light and Maya's laugh beat in Ranger's chest like a drum. Ranger said, "I walked through storm and ditch, and still I rise." Trent scoffed, gaze narrowing, his shadows stretching long across cracked concrete. A bottle rolled in the gutter, rattling like a drumbeat of conflict. The lavender scent swelled, cutting through smoke, telling Ranger he was close to truth. Noah steadied, eyes locked, while Ranger pressed forward a step, defiance burning brighter. Trent lunged forward, hand raised as if to strike, but Noah caught his wrist mid-air, shoving him back. Noah said, "Not again, not ever." Ranger barked, the sound sharp, breaking the silence of the empty street. Trent stumbled, rage flaring as he spat, "He's nothing but trouble." Ranger's chest heaved, but his eyes locked not on Trent, but on the faint glow across the square, a porch light burning steady in the mist. Ranger said, "Home still lives, and you cannot take it." The scar pulsed, but no longer bound him. The night shifted, no longer just threat but revelation. Noah stood tall, voice low, "You don't own him anymore." The truth cut deeper than fists, and Trent's sneer faltered under its weight. Trent staggered, eyes wild, but the glow of the porch light pulled all focus. Ranger surged forward, paws slapping wet pavement, nose quivering. The lavender was no longer memory, it was truth alive near. Trent shouted, "You'll regret this," but his words thinned in the mist. Noah called, "Go, Ranger," his voice steady, full of faith. Ranger said, "I was broken but not lost, and now I return." His stride lengthened, pain forgotten, scar burning only as a mark of survival. Behind, Trent's figure shrank, swallowed by shadow. Ahead, the porch light glowed like a beacon, and Ranger's heart thundered with hope, each beat carrying him closer to reunion. The night no longer held only fear, it held promise. The porch light pulsed brighter as Ranger sprinted, heart thundering against the scar's old ache. Behind, Trent shouted curses, his boots hammering wet pavement. Noah ran too, his breath sharp, voice cutting through mist. "Go, Ranger." Ranger said, "The storm broke me, but cannot stop me." Tires screeched as Trent's car swerved into the street, headlights glaring like jaws. The world narrowed to light, scent, and survival. Ranger darted, paws striking puddles, spray rising like sparks. Noah screamed, "Watch out!" His chest burned, but Ranger's legs pushed harder, each stride a promise. Car's engine roared, and Trent's voice spat, "He's mine or no one." The night became battleground. Hope against hate. The sedan lunged forward, tires slicing water, and Ranger veered left, breath ragged. Noah shouted, "Stop!" But Trent only pressed harder, jaw locked. Ranger said, "I will not fall again," and leapt toward a low fence, claws scraping wood. The impact jarred his ribs, but he landed, legs buckling before steadying. Trent snarled, voice muffled by glass, "You're finished." Noah ran into the car's path, waving arms, forcing Trent to swerve. "Why?" Metal screeched against curb, sparks snapping into mist. Ranger barked, chest raw, standing tall, despite trembling. He said, "I faced the storm and found my ground." The fight had reached its peak, every breath alive with danger. The car's skid ended with a violent shudder, hood slamming into a pole. Trent cursed, slamming fist into wheel, glass spiderwebbing above him. Noah rushed forward, breath sharp, but Trent shoved open the door, staggering out. Trent shouted, "He belongs to me," his voice breaking with fury. Ranger stood his ground, tail stiff, growl thunderous. Ranger said, "Chains no longer bind me." His amber eyes locked on Trent, scar glistening. Noah blocked Trent's path, fists clenched, voice firm. "He belongs with love, not cruelty." The wind carried lavender stronger now, a guiding thread weaving hope into the chaos. The square felt charged, every second stretched thin. Trent lunged, swinging wild, but Noah sidestepped, pushing him back. Noah said enough, his voice shaking with conviction. Ranger barked, the sound echoing against shuttered houses. Trent spat, "He's just a dog." Noah glared, breath heavy, answering, "He's family." Ranger's chest swelled, tail lifting higher, the bond drawn bright as dawn. The porch light flickered, and for a breath it felt like Maya's hand reaching through the mist. Ranger said, "The bond outlives the storm." Trent stumbled again, rage faltering against defiance and loyalty. The fight had shifted, cruelty cracked, and the world leaned toward justice. Trent collapsed to one knee, breath ragged, words bitter. "You'll regret this." But his power had drained into the shadows. Ranger stepped forward, paws steady, eyes unbroken. Ranger said, "I walk with scars, but I walk free." Noah knelt, resting a hand on Ranger's back, voice warm, "We're almost there." The porch light steadied, glowing like a beacon of truth. Lavender flooded the air, no longer memory, but arrival. Trent crawled back toward his broken car, swallowed by darkness. Ranger lifted his head, ears pricked, heart beating with fire. He said, "Home waits, and I will claim it." Together Ranger and Noah turned toward the light, leaving cruelty behind. The storm had passed, but its memory clung to every corner of the neighborhood, leaving glistening streets and air heavy with damp silence. Ranger trotted with Noah beside him, paws still sore, chest rising with steady rhythm. The porch light ahead burned brighter now, no longer faint in mist but steady and sure, like a hand outstretched. "Noah," said, "Almost there, buddy," his breath a mix of exhaustion and relief. Ranger said, "The path behind me holds shadows, but the way forward glows with promise." His tail lifted higher, no longer cautious but carrying hope. Every scent was sharper, lavender strongest of all, pulling him home. A curtain moved inside the house ahead, a silhouette crossing the window like memory made flesh. Ranger's heart thundered, scar tingling, body trembling not with fear but anticipation. The world hushed as if listening, every sound softened under the weight of the moment. He pressed forward, eyes burning with light. The door opened slowly, hinges groaning, and warm light spilled into the gray morning. Maya stepped into view, her face pale with shock before softening into trembling recognition. Maya said, "Ranger," her voice breaking like a prayer. Ranger froze, ears sharp, eyes wide, every memory colliding at once. The laughter, the touch, the home lost in a single cruel night. Noah stood back, breath held, watching Bond overtake words. Ranger said, "I know that voice, it is the sound of home." His paws shook, yet he stepped forward, tail wagging in bursts, scar glinting in the light. Maya fell to her knees, arms out, tears shining in dawn glow. The lavender scent bloomed stronger, wrapping Ranger in the truth of his journey. The world narrowed to two hearts finding one another again, broken pieces, stitching with every step. Ranger leapt forward, paws slapping wet wood, and crashed into Maya's embrace. She wrapped arms tight around his soaked frame, burying her face in his fur, sobbing against his scarred shoulder. Maya said, "You came back to me," her words trembling with disbelief and joy. Ranger said, "The storm could not erase us." His body shook as relief washed through every muscle, tail thudding against the porch rail. Noah turned his face away, blinking back tears. The weight of his own trials softened by witnessing reunion. The morning light broke through clouds, painting them in pale gold, as if the sky itself leaned close to bless the moment. The house hummed with life again, once hollow, now filled by love rekindled. For Ranger, the journey's pain dissolved into warmth, and his eyes closed as peace pressed down like a blanket. Inside the doorway, warmth wrapped Ranger like a long-forgotten song. The house smelled of wood polish, lavender, and safety. Maya guided him in, whispering, "You're home, you're safe," her voice shaking with relief. Ranger padded across familiar tiles, claws clicking softly, tail brushing walls. He said, "I remember every sound, every scent, every corner that once held me." The scar burned faintly but no longer carried pain. It was proof of survival. Noah lingered by the door, hesitant, as if unsure his place belonged inside. Maya looked up, smile fragile but true, saying, "Thank you." Noah nodded, shoulders easing, as though the burden of many storms finally lifted. Ranger circled once on the rug, sighed deep, and lowered himself, chest rising with slow, heavy breaths. He said, "Here I rest, here I am whole again." The house exhaled with him, filling silence with peace. The hours passed gently, the storm only a memory outside, while within the house, healing began. Ranger slept with deep breaths, paws twitching as dreams of storms turned into dreams of home. Maya sat beside him, hands stroking fur, whispering stories only he could hear. Maya said, "I thought I lost you forever, but you found me again," her voice fragile but glowing. Noah brewed coffee in the kitchen, the simple act grounding the moment. He said softly, he carried hope the whole way. Ranger stirred, ears flicking, as if even in sleep he knew he was safe. The scar shone faintly in the soft light, no longer wound but badge of survival. He said, "I walked through cruelty, but love called me back." The lavender candle burned on the table, scent curling like a final promise. The storm had left scars, but it had also delivered them to dawn. The dawn stretched wide across the neighborhood, its golden arms reaching into corners once filled with storm shadows. Ranger stirred from sleep, head lifting as sunlight painted the room. Maya knelt nearby, her smile tired but full of gratitude, whispering, "You're home, you're safe." Ranger said, "The storm carved scars, but it could not erase love." Noah stood by the window, coffee warming his hands, eyes tracing the horizon as if guarding peace. The scent of lavender curled through the air, grounding every breath in hope. Ranger pressed nose to Maya's palm, tail sweeping in slow rhythm. The quiet felt sacred, not the silence of fear, but of peace reclaimed. Outside the world moved on, but inside the walls, time bowed to reunion. The weight of every mile, every wound, fell away. Ranger closed his eyes and exhaled deeply, surrendering to safety, knowing he belonged again. Later that morning, the porch steps creaked beneath them as Maya opened the door wide, inviting sun to pour inside. Ranger bounded forward, paws landing on familiar boards, tail wagging with joy. Maya said, "You always loved the porch," her voice breaking with memory. Noah leaned against the rail, watching with quiet admiration, shoulders lighter than before. Ranger said, "Every step here remembers safety." His scar caught sunlight, glowing not as a wound, but as proof of endurance. Birds scattered across the yard, their wings sharp against pale sky, and Ranger barked once, a sound of triumph. The air was no longer heavy with storm, but alive with promise. Maya laughed, the sound rich and healing, echoing down the quiet street. Noah smiled faintly, knowing he had witnessed a bond unbroken. For Ranger, the porch was not just wood, it was the threshold of home return. Ranger's paws carried him into the yard, where grass sparkled with dew-like stars scattered across earth. He rolled onto his back, belly to the sky, tail whipping the air, joy spilling free. Maya clapped softly, laughter catching in her throat as tears lingered at her cheeks. She said, "You're still my boy," voice glowing with love. Noah set the coffee aside, crouching to scratch Ranger's chest, warmth softening his rough edges. Ranger said, "Here lies freedom, not in running, but in resting with love." The air vibrated with calm, bees humming lazily near lavender bushes, life breathing steady again. Every shadow that once haunted him was driven out by light. Ranger's eyes closed, tongue lolling, body alive with contentment. The yard became more than grass and soil. It became sanctuary, built on scars healed by love. The day wore on softly, time weaving into moments of healing. Ranger followed Maya from room to room, his paws padding steady, ears pricked to every sound. Maya said, "The house feels alive again," voice tender, like a prayer answered. Ranger said, "Every corner sings with memory, and now with presence restored." Noah unpacked a bag left at the door, setting a fresh blanket by Ranger's spot on the rug. He said, "This belongs to him now," his words simple yet heavy with meaning. Ranger circled, then curled onto the blanket, sighing deep. The scar glowed in afternoon's sun, reminder and triumph alike. Maya brushed hair from her eyes, whispering thanks to both men and fate. Outside, leaves swayed gently, shadows no longer threatening but soft. Inside, love held dominion, no storm strong enough to break it again. As dusk descended, Ranger stepped outside once more, sky burning with violet and orange. The porch light flicked on, glowing steady as if guarding him. Maya stood at the threshold, hand on frame, whispering, "Welcome home forever." Noah lingered near the steps, gaze lifted to horizon. Ranger said, "I am no longer lost, for love is my compass." His tail swayed slow, body calm, eyes reflecting sunset fire. The air hummed with peace, silence broken only by evening bird song. The scar no longer hurt, it shone under the fading sky as symbol of survival. Ranger looked back once, meeting Maya's gaze, then forward, breathing deep of home. The world stretched wide with promise, and he knew he belonged. The final moment lingered, beauty held in stillness, a bond unbroken carved against twilight. Love remained, fierce and eternal.